You don't wake up one day and realize your civilization is crumbling. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't march in with chaos and fire. It comes in quietly, disguised as convenience, dressed like entertainment, whispering, "Just relax." It's all fine, and most people believe it. That's how the spiral begins. You stop questioning things that feel good. You accept simple answers because complex truths are exhausting. You laugh at stupidity on the internet, not realizing you're becoming part of the joke. The line between satire and reality starts to blur, and by the time you realize it's not a joke anymore, you're already deep in the spiral. Look around. We went from debating ideas in public forums to arguing with strangers in the comments section of a meme, from honoring knowledge to mocking it, from teaching people how to think to rewarding them for how well they perform outrage. If you like this type of video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Every great civilization starts strong. Visionary leadership, innovation, discipline, culture, courage. But over time, comfort sets in. And with comfort comes complacency, then arrogance, then collective stupidity. Rome had statesmen who studied law, philosophy, astronomy. We have influencers who don't know the difference between your and your, giving life advice to millions. And we worship them. Because now, intellect is suspect. Thinking too much? That's elitist. Changing your mind? That's weak. Admitting you don't know something? That's failure. You're not just watching this spiral, you're in it. And the most dangerous part? It feels normal, like background noise, like scrolling your feed before bed, but piece by piece, the structure is crumbling, starting with your ability to think clearly. Still think this is just a phase? History says otherwise. Let me ask you, when was the last time you paused to think deeply about anything that didn't offer instant gratification? Because if you can't answer that, you might already be further down the spiral than you think. Juvenal, a Roman poet, coined the phrase bread and circuses. It wasn't just a sarcastic line, it was a warning. He watched Rome sedate its citizens with cheap food and grand spectacles so they'd stop asking hard questions. Sound familiar? Today, the bread is Uber Eats, the circus is TikTok, and the silence of critical thought, that's the real show. We didn't choose Idiocracy overnight. We chose it one distraction at a time, one dopamine hit, one skip button, one just 5 more minutes. We built a world where entertainment is constant, thinking is optional, and silence feels like torture. Why wrestle with a difficult book when you can scroll videos of people pointing at floating text with dramatic music in the background? Our ancestors debated in forums, wrote letters, studied philosophy. We reply with emojis and rage share things we didn't even read. Wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. And in a world addicted to noise, whispers get lost. When did we start believing that attention equals value? That the loudest person must be the smartest? That a trending soundbite has more credibility than decades of hard-earned experience? Here's the brutal truth. We're not just consuming entertainment. We're being trained by it. Trained to need constant stimulation. Trained to avoid nuance. Trained to reject anything that doesn't flatter us or entertain us instantly. The result? An entire generation more fluent in sarcasm than self-awareness. More skilled at consumption than contemplation. More afraid of boredom than of ignorance. You think this is harmless? Civilizations don't fall because people become evil. They fall because people become indifferent. Bread and circuses were enough to keep Rome quiet while it rotted from within. So now ask yourself, what's keeping you quiet while the world falls apart? If you can't live without noise, you'll never hear the truth. Every collapsing civilization hits a turning point, not when it's invaded, but when it becomes obsessed with immediate pleasure. The slow death doesn't start with fire, it starts with comfort. And here's the trap. Comfort feels like safety, but when comfort becomes your compass, the future dies quietly in the background. The Mayans were geniuses. They built cities aligned with the stars, predicted eclipses centuries in advance. But when their environment began collapsing, deforestation, drought, soil depletion, they didn't change course. They doubled down on expansion. Why? Because the elite didn't want to give up their luxuries. They chose now over later, and the jungle eventually swallowed their temples whole. Sound familiar? We have AI, climate models, global satellite data. We can predict hurricanes, droughts, market crashes. We know what's coming. But our actions? They're ruled by quarterly profits, election cycles, and whether we'll go viral for saying something snappy. We live in a culture that rewards immediacy and punishes patience. Why build for 10 years if you can get likes today? Why save the planet if your next dopamine hit is one scroll away? You think this is just a personal problem? Multiply it by 8 billion. Now it's a civilizational time bomb. The future is not destroyed by ignorance alone. It's destroyed by people who know better and do nothing. Here's the deeper problem. Your brain is wired to sabotage your future self. Studies show we treat our future selves like strangers. That's why people binge TikTok but can't stick to retirement savings. It's not just laziness, it's neurological. But civilizations that survive, they build systems to override that wiring. Traditions, values, education, rituals. They create cultures where long-term thinking is honored, not mocked. So ask yourself, right now, today, when was the last time you did something difficult because your future self needed it? If your answer is, I don't remember, you're not alone, but you're also not safe. There was a time when being wise meant being trusted. Now, say something thoughtful online and someone replies, cope. Read a book? Bro thinks he's better than us. Have expertise? You're part of the system. This is how it starts, not with bonfires of books, but with mockery, with suspicion, with sarcasm aimed like a sniper at anyone who dares to know more. We used to trust people who spent their lives studying truth. Now we trust people who speak confidently for 30 seconds with good lighting and a hooky intro. And before you say, that's just the internet, remember this. Culture doesn't stay on screens. It becomes policy. It becomes elections. It becomes reality. In 399 BC, Athens sentenced Socrates to death for corrupting the youth. In reality, he just asked uncomfortable questions. Fast forward to today, and no one needs poison. We've built something far more efficient. Algorithms. Algorithms that feed you exactly what you already believe, that reward you for never changing your mind, that punish any attempt at nuance, curiosity, or growth. We say, do your own research, but what we really mean is, find someone who agrees with me. We've confused confirmation with comprehension. We've replaced deep reading with emotional scrolling. And here's the twist. It's not just the public rejecting experts. Experts are burning out, shutting up, walking away. Because what's the point of dedicating 20 years to studying something if a random guy with an iPhone and rage issues can erase your work in 20 seconds? You want to know what kills civilizations? It's not ignorance, it's arrogant ignorance. The kind that mocks doctors, scientists, teachers, historians, and calls it critical thinking. So I'll ask you straight, who do you trust? And more importantly, why? Is it because they're right, or just because they make you feel right? Collapse doesn't show up with fireworks. It doesn't knock at your door and say, hey, this is the end. It sneaks in through your habits, through your daily scroll, through the decisions you avoid making. Civilizations don't die in one dramatic event. They rot, quietly, from within. And here's the terrifying truth. It's not three separate problems: lack of critical thinking, short-term narcissism, and rejection of expertise. It's one self-reinforcing spiral, a psychological doom loop. When you stop thinking critically, you become more vulnerable to emotional shortcuts. That makes you chase instant gratification, which makes long-term thinking feel pointless, which makes you reject experts who ask you to sacrifice now for the future, which leads to worse decisions, which creates more problems, which makes you more desperate for simple answers, so you shut down critical thinking even more. And the spiral tightens. It's the same pattern over and over, from Rome to the Mayans, from the Ming dynasty to modern democracies, not because people were evil, because they were overwhelmed, distracted, comfortable, tired, and looking for the path of least resistance. Sound familiar? Here's a modern twist. A 2020 study showed that after climate disasters, hurricanes, wildfires, floods, support for climate action actually drops in affected communities. Why? Because people are too busy surviving the now to think about the later. Collapse doesn't just create chaos, it destroys your mental bandwidth. So even the people who want to help can't. That's how the doom loop wins. It doesn't destroy your mind, it hijacks it. And convinces you that scrolling is doing something, that sharing a post is solving the problem, that someone else will figure it out. But no one's coming, because everyone else is thinking the same thing. And that's how civilizations fall, not because no one saw it coming, but because everyone thought someone else would stop it. Every civilization gets this moment, a crossroads. On one side, decline, comfortable, familiar, full of distractions and emotional echo chambers. On the other side, the painful, demanding path of renewal. No filters, no shortcuts, just truth, discipline, and conscious action. Which way we go? It doesn't start with a revolution. It starts with you. You, choosing to think when everyone else scrolls. You, seeking real knowledge when clickbait is easier. You, asking uncomfortable questions, not to argue, but to understand. The Renaissance didn't begin with a king. It began with minds. People who rediscovered ancient wisdom, questioned dogma, and rebuilt a broken world with nothing but paper, ink, and willpower. They weren't influencers. They were builders, quiet, curious, stubbornly committed to long-term truth. You want modern proof? Look at South Korea. In 1960, it was one of the poorest countries on Earth. Today, it's a technological powerhouse. Why? Because it invested in minds, education, critical thinking, cultural memory, long-term vision. They taught people not just what to think, but how to think, and they're still rising. Now look at Venezuela, rich in resources, broken by short-term politics, emotional populism, and anti-intellectual leadership. It's not about what you have, it's about what you build or refuse to. Here's the hardest truth. No one's going to save you from this spiral. No government, no expert, no hero. It starts with self-responsibility, radical honesty, intellectual humility. Ask yourself, today, not someday, what did I believe yesterday that I no longer accept? When was the last time I changed my mind based on evidence? What truth am I avoiding because it's inconvenient? If your answers scare you, good. That's where growth begins. You are not powerless. You are not doomed, but you are responsible. The collapse, or the renewal, begins with the quiet decisions you make when no one is watching. So don't wait for history to write your part. Start rewriting it now. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like and subscribe to the channel.